I'm sort of worried about whether or not books are going to be around in 100 years or whatever. Like, how do you feel about it?
Books have been around for thousands of years, and that means they'll probably be around for another thousand of years. But then on the other flip side, it's like technology is moving so fast. Like, who knows with like Neuralink, if you could just like download a book into your brain, like, do you even need to read it? So I think books will be useful until like that point in time happens.
Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Dan.
So for people who don't know, you are the creator of Alex and Books, where you have over 1 million followers across different social media platforms who come to you for book recommendations, book reviews, reading tips, all that kind of stuff, which I love because like I'm like a huge book nerd, and I'm just really excited to have you.
Yeah, it's always great to meet people that love reading books. So happy to talk about books and especially how we could use AI.
Let's do it. So like I got to start with like books. Like why do you like books so much?
Uh, it happened like during college where I first discovered like self-improvement books, which was actually the book How to Win Friends and Influence People. I'm like, wait a second, you can learn social skills and like communication skills from a book, especially one book that's almost 100 years old. And that kind of just like blew my mind because I thought there were only textbooks, fiction books, and like poetry books. So once I learned there's like this whole genre that could help you in like anything you want to learn about, it's like, well, there's a lot of things that I want to learn about, a lot of things I want to improve on. So let me read every single book I can out there to basically improve my life. So that's basically how I fell in love with self-improvement books.
I love that. Are you a physical book guy, Kindle book guy? What's your book reading stack?
So I definitely use all three. I think each of them have their pros and cons. But I really love the physical books, just being able to like disconnect from technology. Like I'm a content creator, so I'm on my laptop for hours a day. I'm on my phone for hours a day. So I like to just be able to take a book, a pen, and like go to the park or go to the beach or something and just disconnect.
I love that. I'm a huge physical book guy. I just feel like with Kindle, I sometimes read it for things where I'm like doing a lot of research and I need to like page through books like really quick or something like that. But I feel like all the books have the same flavor, like the same taste, because it's all just like on the Kindle. Whereas with the physical book, it just feels like it's its own experience because it has like a feel and it's got a cover image and you know the paper feels different, all that kind of stuff. And I love that.
Yeah, I could definitely relate. And there's actually studies that talk about how if you read a physical book, you actually remember more of what you read because you kind of remember like, oh, that chapter was on the left side of this page, like halfway through the book, versus on the Kindle book, everything's the same. So it's hard to remember like, oh, where was that quote? Where was that lesson? But with the physical book, you kind of know where it is, so it's easier to find.
That makes sense. How do you feel like? Because I love books. All my friends make fun of me because like there's books like everywhere, like all around my house, like up to the walls, like in the kitchen, like all that kind of stuff. And like how do you feel about the future of books or like people's relationship to reading? Like I'm sort of worried about whether or not books are going to be around in 100 years or whatever. Like how do you feel about it?
I think either they will be around. I mean, it's kind of like a simple answer, but you have like the Lindy aspect of it, where books have been around for thousands of years, and that means they'll probably be around for another thousand years. But then on the other flip side, it's like technology is moving so fast. Like who knows with like Neuralink, if you could just like download a book into your brain, like do you even need to read it? So I think books will be useful until like that point in time happens. So for now and for the next few decades, you want to be a reader because there's a lot of pros to it.
I feel you. I love it. I think they'll be around for a while.
Yeah.
I'm just always interested, especially for people who are creating content that's not necessarily book content. Like how you think about books versus other types of content, all that kind of stuff. So the topic for today is using AI to read. Can you give us like a sort of broad overview of like how you're using AI to read in your life?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to use it. I think we'll start with some of the simpler ways and then maybe get to the more advanced strategies later on. So one of the simplest ways to use AI is like, let's say there's a book you really enjoyed recently. So maybe name a book that you loved in the past month or so.
I've been reading Adrian Tchaikovsky's series of sci-fi books. The one I'm currently reading is Children of Memory.
Yeah.
But each book in the series is sort of like the first book is about this like race of intelligent spiders, and they meet humans, and that's kind of like what happens when that happens. And the next book is about octopuses, intelligent octopuses, spacefaring octopuses, and the third one is about crows. And what I really love about it is he's very good at thinking about Okay, how would like an alien intelligence work, and then how would that layer up into like the society they build and the technology they use? And specifically for by aliens, I mean like how would it work for like an actual human, not human, an actual animal intelligence that's like on Earth? Like if we sort of evolve, if they evolved and became like way more intelligent, way more advanced. So yeah, it's a great book.
Okay, so this is a great way to use AI. So if we were at a party and you mentioned that book, I don't read a lot of sci-fi books, so I don't really know what it's about. So I literally just go to the bathroom, open up ChatGPT, and be like, "Hey, can you summarize this book for me in like 500 words?" So that way I could go back to you and have a conversation about like that book, or like just be able to have hold a conversation with you. So I think that's one way you could use AI. So just use it as a way to summarize, you know, a book that someone mentions, so that way you have an understanding of like what they're interested in.
Can we see that? Like how? What would you use for that?
Uh, so I would just type in the name of that book that you mentioned and ask, for this specific case, I would ask Claude AI or ChatGPT and ask it like, can you summarize this book in 500 words?
Let's do it.
Let's see what we get.
Okay. Go for it.
What was the name of the book again?
Children of Memory.
Oh, so this is interesting. So Claude AI isn't able to summarize it. Let's see if we could use maybe ChatGPT
Yeah.
to get a summary. Oh, and look at that. So ChatGPT is able to tell you more about the book than Claude AI.
Yeah, I mean, I think ChatGPT has that browse feature. So especially for books that are maybe like less popular or there's less stuff online, so it doesn't necessarily make it into the training data. ChatGPT is going to be a bit better at finding you the answer.
Okay. So for the prompt, I just asked, can you summarize Children of Memory in 500 words? And then ChatGPT gave a summary of the author, and it says, it's the third book in this Children of Time series. The novel continues the saga of humanity's struggle for survival and their interactions with the uplifted species in a richly imaginative space opera. So like you mentioned earlier, it talks about humanity's struggle for survival and this kind of species that's a lot more advanced than we are. So that's just a general summary, and then it gives you a lot more information later down the line. And what I really like is you could kind of ask it to maybe summarize the book in 2 sentences, or you could ask it to summarize the entire book in like 2 pages. So you kind of have that spectrum of options.
That's really cool. Yeah, what's next? Like after you do the summary, like what do you typically do?
So in this case, you really enjoy this book. So let's try to find out what books might be similar to it. So in this case, I may ask ChatGPT. Let's see. What was the question I mentioned? Okay, so let's use this prompt. I love Children of Memory. Could you recommend me a few books similar to it? Okay, so let's see what we get here.
I definitely. So it looks like we've got Blindsight, the Three Body Problem, Diaspora, Perdido, Aurora, The Broken Earth, Embassy Town. That's really interesting. So I've read The Three Body Problem. I've never heard of Blindsight. Let's see. This novel explores first contact with an alien species and delves into themes of consciousness, identity, and the nature of intelligence. That's actually quite interesting. I would probably read that.
Yeah.
Let's keep going. So Diaspora by Greg Egan. So Greg Egan, I happen to know, like I've read one of his other books, who's the name is I'm blanking on, but I really like him as a writer. He's really good at conceptual sci-fi. This is like definitely on point. And one of the things that I think is quite interesting about this is a lot. Sometimes when you ask for book recommendations from ChatGPT, off the bat, it can recommend like pretty sort of cliche or like books that are like too popular. And so I often have to like ask it to do like off the beaten path type
Okay.
stuff. But these recommendations are really good.
Yeah. When you were talking about the book earlier, the three body problem came to mind. But that's like the limit of my like science fiction reading.
Hmm.
So it's interesting to see that you agree with a few of the books on the recommendation list.
Yeah.
And I like to think of AI kind of as like the ultimate librarian. So back in the day, if you really enjoy the book, you might ask the librarian to give you book recommendations because they probably the most well-read person you know.
Yeah.
But now you have AI that's been able to like read through thousands or if not millions of books. So it's a great way to find like your next book.
Totally. One of the things that also is kind of interesting for this, I don't know if you push it in this direction, but if you, before you ask it for recommendations, if you type in something like, um, tell me the vibes of Children of Memory, um, like what is it about? What are the themes? What are the ideas? Um, I'm trying to figure out why I like it, and yeah. And if you do that, like ChatGPT will often say something that just like really puts its finger on like what you like about a book or a topic or
Mm,
whatever or kind of writing.
yeah.
And once you have that, it's sort of like this cheat code where you can be like, okay, I want more of that specific kind of thing. It's
Okay.
really kind of like magic moment. So let's see what it said. So um exploration of post-human civilizations. The novel delves into the lives of post-human species and their interactions with remnants of humanity. That's interesting. Memory and identity is another one. Central to the story is the theme of memory and its impact on identity. Survival and adaptation, blurring of technology and magic, interpersonal and interspecies relationships. I think this is pretty good. Philosophical and ethical questions, cosmic horror and hope. That's interesting.
I haven't heard that theme before. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a sort of powerful thing. Like I'm kind of curious. Like for you, do you have a couple of like books that you've read recently that you've liked? Like maybe we could throw it in there and see if we can pull out your taste too.
Mm. Uh, so I'm reading this Andrew Wilkinson's new book, Never Enough from Barista to Billionaire, but it's not out yet, so I don't
Mm-hmm.
think Chat.
Yeah,
I don't think-
ChatGPT might not have enough about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm rereading $100 Million Offers.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we could use that book.
Let's do it.
Okay. So let's ask it. What are the themes of?
I would say vibes, because vibes is a bit broader. For some reason, ChatGPT likes vibes.
I would never think to use that word.
Yeah.
But like, because I'm talking to like a robot, not a person. But I'm surprised it's like able to understand what we mean by vibes.
Yeah. You want to read it out?
Yeah, so we have pragmatic and action oriented, which I would totally agree on. If you're reading nonfiction, you're reading because you want to solve a problem you're having. So you want it to be, useful and action oriented because you want to take action on it. High energy and motivational, also would agree on because you don't want to read something dull. There's so many business books that, like, sure, the information might be great, but if it's portrayed in just like a boring, boring tone, it's hard to read it. Value centric. I think that's also a great point. Like when I read a book, I try to think, what's the insights per page or wisdom per page? And Alex Hormozy is one of those people where it's like every few sentences he drops like a knowledge bomb, and it just makes you want to keep reading. Data driven analytical. I would say another great point here, because you don't want just anecdotal story where it's like, all right, here's what I did, but like here's data proving it or backing it up. So it's not just like wild claims. He actually has the data to like prove it. Empowering and educational, would also agree with that. Nonsense and direct. Yeah, that's another great point. You don't want to read a book with like a lot of fluff in it. You kind of want to get to like the meat of the book or get to like the insights pretty quickly, and I think he does a great job of that.
Totally. One thing that I think is really interesting too is like I also like Alex Hormozy's business books, and like I feel like I have a very diverse range of interests where I'm like, okay, like I'm into conceptual sci-fi. I really like poetry, and I also really like salesy business books like Alex Hormozy or whatever. Like, what does that even mean? Like, what is my taste? And ChatGPT is actually quite good at like finding the intersections. So if you say something like, um, uh, both of these books are my favorite books. Can you help me uh, can you help explain what my taste in books is?
That's interesting. So why do we enjoy what is it, cosmic horror and hope, and also action oriented nonfiction books?
So let's see. So this might be more of my taste since you said you don't read a lot of sci-fi, but it says complex and thought-provoking content. So I always love when ChatGPT compliments me. I love complex thought-provoking content. You appreciate books that challenge your thinking, which is whether it's through deep philosophical questions and ethical dilemmas or through practical business strategies. I like that. Practical and actionable, we got that. That's really good. exploration of human and post-human themes, high energy and motivational tone. That is kind of interesting. I think that there's probably some sort of energy overlap between Adrian Tchaikovsky and Alex Hormozy, which I think is a sentence that no one has ever said in the history of the world. But that is true. Blending fiction with real world relevance. Okay. I think these are actually pretty good. I've definitely done this before with like a huge list of like all the books I like, and
Okay.
it's been like actually sort of life-changing to be like, okay, now I know what my taste is,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, so I imagine the more data you input, like, okay, here are the 20 best books I ever read.
Yeah.
Recommend me the next 20 books I could read.
Yeah.
That's really a useful way to use it.
It's pretty cool. Okay, cool. So we've talked about sort of like finding a next book to read based on books that we've books that I liked. What's next?
So let's use AI to help us maybe solve a recent problem we're having or something we want to improve on. So what would come to mind? Maybe like what's the area in your life you want to improve on, or maybe a problem that you want to.
This is an interesting one. Let me see if I can find a good problem for us. So basically, one of the things. So I run it's a media company. Got it right here. And we're growing a lot recently. We've got a newsletter. I've got this podcast. We have a paid subscription, so people get access to like paid articles that we write, and we have a really good crew of writers who are writing every day. We publish every day. We also recently added an entrepreneur in residence, so he's helping us start. We have a consulting arm. And then we also have a couple software incubations, one of which we're launching a software product tomorrow, basically. We have a couple more in the pipeline. And so there's all these like different things going on, which I think is like generally, I think it's like one of the good things about me as like I don't know, company leader is like I have a lot of energy and I have a lot of ideas and whatever, but it can also feel a little bit all over the place.
Okay.
And so I've been thinking a lot about like, okay, like how do we frame things so that the whole company is like rowing in the same direction, even if we have different, like we have writers over here and we have engineers building software over here and we have consultants and whatever. Like, how do we make everyone row in the same direction, and how do we like get it all to layer up into like one cohesive concept of what the company is? And I've started to think of it. I actually got this from a creator retreat that I went on, because I think this is actually sort of similar for a lot of different creators. But I've started to think of it a little bit like a pyramid where. And it's not a pyramid scheme, I promise. But like at the bottom of the pyramid it's sort of like all the free content that we have that gets people in the door. And then the layer above that is sort of like our main offer, which is our $20 a month every subscription. You get access to all of our articles. You get the software we build. You get discounts on courses, like all that kind of stuff. And then above that, we do like consulting and training. And then above that, I'll do like advising or speaking or whatever. And each layer up, it will appeal to fewer and fewer people who pay more and more. And that's sort of like this whole pyramid. But I think the big question with the pyramid is like, how do I keep everybody aligned together and knowing what everybody else is doing without creating a lot of meetings? And so that's a very long-winded way of saying like we have like maybe a bit of a bigger organization now than we have had in the past, and all the people in the organization are doing different things, and I want to figure out a way to keep everybody aligned toward a similar common goal. And yeah.
Okay. So let's try this prompt. Let's go to ChatGPT again. Okay, so the general prompt that I've been using is I'm currently struggle with describe your pain point here.
And I just gave you an entire like monologue of, of
so
pains.
I'm gonna try to summarize it in a sentence. Hopefully I can try it. Yeah. So the prompt is I'm currently struggling with describe pain point here. Could you recommend me 3 books that will help me solve this problem? Okay. So let me try to do my best to summarize.
We'll see how good your listening skills are.
I'm struggling. Okay. Okay, I'm currently struggling with building a media empire, let's say, and I'm worried about company culture and making sure we are all moving in the same direction. Is there anything you would add to that?
I think like we have different parts of the business. and making sure everyone knows what's going on in other parts of the business and everyone supports each other rather than like sort of competing is like kind of the way I would frame it. Not even necessarily competing, just like um, being aligned.
Okay, so I'm currently struggling with building a media empire, and I'm worried about the company culture and making sure that we are all moving in the same direction and that everyone is aligned with the company's mission. Could you recommend me 3 books that will help solve this problem? And
Great.
let's see what we get from that.
So it's you should know. I'm seeing it's updating its memory, so it's remembering things about this conversation. So if
Okay.
you mouse over the memory part of it, um, it will remember that about you. You may want to delete that at some point, just so it doesn't end
Really?
up giving you
Okay, I didn't know that was a feature.
end
Yeah.
up giving you the wrong recommendations. But I do love that feature of ChatGPT is like it starts to build a profile of like who you are and what you like, so it gets better over
Okay.
time, which is pretty cool. Okay, but let's see. So it said, Start with Why How Great Leaders Inspire Everyone to Take Action by Simone Sinek. This book emphasizes the importance of understanding and communicating the why behind your business. Sinek argues that great leaders and organizations start with a clear sense of purpose. That makes sense. Leaders Eat Last, Why Some Teams Pull Together and Others Don't. Okay, so we're but also by Simone Sinek. Another insightful book. Delves into the role of leadership in creating a healthy and sustainable company culture. That makes sense. The Culture Code, The Secrets of Highly Successful Groups. I think this makes sense. One like little wrinkle, which I'm like super curious if there a book like exists here, is that the style of company that I'm building is like sort of non-traditional, and it like there's some aspects of it that look like a tech startup, but like it's truly a creator run business, and I think there's a different set of rules for creator run businesses where like um, normally, as a business scales, like the CEO gets busier and busier and does less and less of the like actual like on the ground like hands on work,
Yeah.
and is more just like managing teams of people. Um, and I think in a creator run business, it's the opposite. Like the creator like still does their thing, and the trick is to like have teams that can operate while you're doing the content that like gets everyone in the door, can help like do all the other stuff like build the products and all that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of curious if there are book recommendations um that are about solving this kind of problem, but specifically for like sort of creator run businesses where the CEO is like, yeah, spending some time managing, but is also spending a lot of time just like doing creative work. Yeah.
That's interesting. For that, maybe we could reverse engineer it. Maybe we could think about what companies kind of fit that mold
Mm.
and then see if anyone has written books about them.
That's cool. I would so I know exactly a few of these companies. So one company that comes to mind is Bill Simmons has a podcast company called The Ringer. And Bill Simmons is a huge podcaster, like really big time sports writer too.
Mm.
And he like has one of the top sports podcasts in the world. And he ran The Ringer and did his podcast like a couple days a week. And then sold to Spotify for a couple $100 million. And I think he's like still some sort of like VP or something at Spotify, but he also still runs The Ringer. Um, Sorry, he also still does a podcast like multiple times a week. So Bill Simmons is one. Another one is so Sam Harris has like he's got a podcast, he's got books, he's got a newsletter, but then he also has this app called Waking Up.
Waking up, yeah.
And so like he's involved in that to the extent that like it sort of comes out of his brain and all of the work that he's done in meditation and consciousness and all that kind of stuff. But like he has someone else runs the business day to day, who I met, and he's very smart. Um, I feel like there are definitely some other people, but also honestly, like Mr. Beast is another one. Like he's got like a snack brand now. He's got a bunch of other businesses, but like he's still making his videos. Not like he like stopped making his videos. So that's one. And the last one is actually someone who I know is his name is Kevin Espiritu, and he runs this company called Epic
Yeah.
Gardening.
Yeah.
And he's amazing, and they have like, I mean, he started with just videos, and now they like, I think they like acquired like a seed company, and they also do direct to consumer products. So like if you want to buy like like the best trowel, like they
Yeah.
have the trowel for you, like that kind of thing. So all those people are I think people who are sort of in this mold.
Okay. So I listed all the companies in ChatGPT, and I'm going to ask it to maybe name some similar ones, just to see like if any others come to mind, to see like how on target we are.
Mm. Barstool, yeah. So Bleacher Report and Vox, not really. So what I think it's doing is it's looking for like competitors,
Hmm.
and like I think what we should tell it, if you go up and you modify that original prompt, so you see that pencil, yeah. Um, like I think we want to tell it about the like specific thing that we're looking for, which is like companies that are started by someone who's primarily focused on making content in some form, um, and um, where that person like leads the company, but is still mostly spending time doing that, doing the content creation.
How does that sound?
So name similar companies that are started by people making content, um, which are led by the creator, but also manage the business. So I would say like name similar companies that are started by people making content, um, uh, where the creator continues making content and leads the business. Um, but um, but who has other operational leaders who manage the day to day of the business. And then I would just delete the everything up to the ringer. Um,
Yep. They
cool.
could put like the
Yeah.
ringer. Okay. So let's see what we get.
Sweet. So we got Barstool. Red Ventures, I never heard of that, is a portfolio of digital companies that includes brands like the Point Sky Healthline and CNET. Huh. While Elias provides strategic vision, the operational leadership team manages the daily business activities. Do you know who Rick Elias is, the co-founder of Red Ventures?
No.
Okay, interesting. Gimlet Media, founded by Alex Bloomberg and Matt Lieber. So Matt is actually an every investor, and I know him. I know him quite well. And yeah, Alex for sure, I think fits this. He was a podcaster and was like one of like Alex and Matt both did a podcast together during Gimlet. BuzzFeed, I think BuzzFeed's sort of, but like Jonah Peretti is like not really a like he doesn't necessarily put his name on the stuff they put out. Like
Okay.
BuzzFeed is like a more anonymous brand. Um, Hello Sunshine, so Reese Witherspoon, Patreon, Jack Conti to some degree. Yeah, that's interesting. I love Jack Conti; he's amazing. And then Rooster Teeth, interesting. Okay, cool. No, these are good. I'm kind of curious about Red Ventures. But yeah, what would you do next?
So maybe we could ask ChatGPT, like, have any books been written about any of these CEOs or founders of these companies?
That's great.
Okay, so we're asking it, have any books been written about the CEOs or founders of the companies mentioned above?
Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter by 50 Cent. Which CEO is mentioned above?
That's really interesting. So they like, yeah, I wonder what information is taken it from. Cause
Maybe scroll up a little bit. Okay, scroll down. Okay. Oh no, go. I want to see the first. I want to see the first one. Okay, well, not specifically about Barstool. Curtis Jackson, better known as 50 Cent, shares his experiences and lessons in business and entertainment. Honestly, like, I mean, he has a lot of businesses. I think that's actually an interesting comparison. I had not thought of that. Like, he had the whole vitamin water thing. I don't know, like,
oh yeah,
what else he's done, but like, he definitely made a lot of money on vitamin
I,
water.
I think why it's maybe given these answers, like the business model you're mentioning is pretty new.
Yeah.
So it can't really come up with any specific books about it. But like, I guess 50 Cent, you could think of him as like one of the original influencers who ended up getting equity in the deal.
Yeah.
So you kind of, it's like an early form of the business model that you're doing now.
I think Michael Jordan too. Like Air Jordans and with Nike, like that's another one. I think there are some differences because like in the case of, at least of the case of Nike, like Nike already existed. So he's like co-creating a product, but
Mm,
like, so for me, like we're building products from scratch rather than like necessarily partnering, but it's a similar flavor of idea.
yeah.
Yeah. Let's keep going. So this is not a T-shirt, a brand, a culture, a community, a life, and streetwear by Bobby Hundreds. This book by Bobby Hundreds, co-founder of the streetwear brand The Hundreds, provides insight into building a brand and community. That's actually kind of interesting. Like, I think there's a lot of like most fashion companies like are made by like a person whose name is on the company, like Tom Ford or
Right.
whatever,
Yeah.
and they're definitely still like very, very deeply involved in all the creative
Yeah.
decisions, which is really interesting. I had not thought of that.
Yeah. I never thought about fashion being like content creator led, but you think of Polo Ralph Lauren, led by Ralph Lauren. Like he is a content creator, he's a designer, he's the business manager. Yeah, you learn something new.
Yeah, I definitely did. So maybe we could find some like, I would love to find books about people who have started fashion businesses, but like books that would sort of like fit my taste.
Okay.
Um
Or it's about who started.
yeah, started people who started. Can you find us books about people who started fashion businesses? Yeah. Keep going.
Anything we should add to that?
Yeah, so can you find us books about people who started fashion businesses, who were both the primary like sort of creative like inspiration and ran the business? Let's just start there, and we can get more complicated later. The Woman I Wanted to Be by Diane von Furstenberg, the iconic fashion designer and creator of the wrap dress. Coco Chanel, The Legend and Life by Justine Picardi, the biography of Coco Chanel, one of the most influential fashion designers of the 20th century. I've actually always wanted to look into Coco Chanel. That sounds like really interesting. The Battle of Versailles, the night American fashion stumbled into the spotlight and made history. Dior by Dior, the autobiography of Christian Dior. The Asylum, the True Tales of Madness from a Life in Fashion. Interesting. House of Versace. I think I've actually read that.
Okay.
Because there was a book that came out, and there was a movie that came out recently with Lady Gaga
Oh.
about was it Versace? Maybe it was about Gucci. I think it was about Gucci.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, she was in that movie about
Yeah,
Gucci.
yeah. That was a great book and a
Yeah.
great movie. So I've not read The House of Versace, but maybe I should. This is actually quite good. Uh, cool. I noticed you reached your GPT-4o limit. If you need, I can also drive the next chats.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Go for it.
yeah. That's really cool. I just this little thing about like fashion people have been building these kinds of businesses for a while is like really fascinating to me, because it definitely does have a lot of the same dynamics where yes, it's the sort of like creative and business person all in one, but also I think that the way that you get to be a like fashion designer, like where you have your own house, is you have to build your brand first, and people
Mm,
sort of start to know your name a little bit,
yeah.
and then you like kind of create a product based on that. And I think that's very like influencer-y too. Yeah,
Yeah, I definitely agree. I know Ralph Lauren started with the ties, and then he got into the suits, and then he expanded from there. Um,
that's fascinating. Okay, cool. So what's next? What should we look at next?
um, so another way I've been using AI is kind of as your personal, I like to call it your personal study buddy, or like, you know, your English professor, English tutor. Because sometimes, like, I've been trying to read more philosophical books, sometimes like more fiction books. But these books can be kind of difficult to understand. So, for example, I recently read Siddhartha, which is, you know, it's one of those books that you hear a lot about. Everyone says like you should read it. It's like life-changing book. So I'm like, okay, let me pick it up. Let me give it a try. But it was written over 100 years ago, so it was kind of in like old English. So it's kind of like a little bit difficult to understand. And as I'm reading it, I know there's like just multiple deeper levels of meaning in this book, and I'm having a hard time kind of comprehending them. So then I'll ask it like, hey, ChatGPT, what does the river in Siddhartha symbolize, or what's the meaning of it? And that will help me like kind of just understand kind of the themes of the book.
That's really cool. So let's actually do that now. I'm kind of curious. So you can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
So let's do that right now. So basically, I think what we should probably first do is do a little bit of an overview of Siddhartha,
Yeah.
just in case people haven't read it. Okay. Can you summarize Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse in I don't know, 2 paragraphs. Let's see. Um, Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse is a philosophical novel that follows the spiritual journey of a young man named Siddhartha during the time of the Buddha. The novel begins with Siddhartha, a Brahmin's son who is dissatisfied with the ritualistic and doctrinal life he leads. Along with his close friend Govinda, Siddhartha sets out to explore different paths to enlightenment. Um, Siddhartha's quest leads him to a new phase of life where he indulges in sensual pleasures and material wealth, guided by the courtesan Kamala. I feel like this is like a little bit more in depth than I really want.
Yeah.
Make it 2 sentences. Make it 3 sentences. I think 3 is enough. Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse follows the journey of a young man named Siddhartha. As he seeks spiritual enlightenment, he explores various paths, including asceticism, hedonism, and ultimately finds wisdom through the teaching of a simple ferryman named Vasudeva. By learning to listen to the river, Siddhartha realizes that true enlightenment comes from within and through the direct experience of life rather than through teachings or doctrines.
Yeah. So exactly what it says. Listen to the river. Like, what does that even mean? So let's explore. Like, can you explain that? Like,
Okay,
can you
cool.
understand
That's
that? Yeah.
awesome. Okay, so listen to the river. What does that even mean? Can you explain? In Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, listening to the river symbolizes the practice of deep contemplative observation and understanding of life and its natural flow. The river represents the continuous, ever-changing nature of existence, where every moment is interconnected. By learning to listen to the river, Siddhartha attunes himself to the present moment and the cyclical nature of life, gaining insights into the essence of reality and achieving a profound sense of inner peace. This metaphor underscores the importance of experiential wisdom and inner harmony in the quest for enlightenment. What do you think?
Okay, that sounds like a kind of like a whole lot of nothing. So so sometimes when it gives me like an answer like this, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude, I'll
Uh-huh.
ask it like, can you explain the paragraph above, but use simpler words, just so it's more direct and it can't use like fancy words to hide behind what's saying.
Okay, be more direct. Okay, cool. So I said, can you explain the paragraph above, but use simple words, be more direct? In Siddhartha, listening to the river means understanding life by paying close attention to its flow and changes. The river represents how life constantly moves and is connected. By focusing on the river, Siddhartha learns to live in the present and see the true nature of things, finding deep peace and wisdom. The idea highlights that real understanding comes from personal experience and being in tune with life itself.
Yeah, that's like a major difference. Like anyone can understand that, and it's just so much more clear what the river symbolizes versus the paragraph above.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I definitely feel like having ChatGPT translate books is like such an interesting thing because it's like that book's in English, you know,
Yeah,
like, and I think one of the things AI sort of reveals to us is that there are many different Englishes spoken by many different subcommunities, and we normally think that like, oh yeah, there's like British English and American English, but like no, it's like there's like the English of Siddhartha. There's like people who write philosophy books. That's a different English. Like there's scientists. That's a different English or whatever. There's people in tech. There's a different English than people, I don't know, people who are in like the oil industry or whatever. And so like and ChatGPT does these like really, really good, subtle, universal translations between different forms of English. I think that's so important for book reading.
yeah, I find it super useful because yeah, there's a lot of books like I want to explore, but I know they kind of beyond my like expertise or just knowledge. So I need someone to kind of help me teach me like what the book's about. So back in the day, you might have gone, taken like a college course or something. Here now you just ask Chat GPT, and it's like your personal tutor. So I think that's like a powerful way to kind of use books to as your personal study buddy that a lot of people haven't thought about.
It's really great. So you read that book recently. You brought it, so you must like it. Like, tell me more about like what you got out of it.
Um, I don't know if I would say I liked it.
Okay, maybe you didn't like it.
Yes. So, I want to see like why so many people found it like valuable or insightful, and it just kind of shared like the common themes of life. So basically, the main overview is he goes to be a Buddha, so he kind of gives everything up. Then he lives this like hedonic lifestyle where it's just like pleasure, pleasure, and that's also not a good way to go about life. And then he finds like balance by being in between. So I think that was like kind of the main message I took away from it. I also kind of use it kind of you could ask like who are the main characters in this book and what role do they play, because in this book there's probably 5 to 10 different characters. I'm sure sometimes when you read a science fiction book there's 100
There's a
characters.
lot.
Yeah, so you get lost with the so sometimes I might ask chat gpt like, can you explain the relations between these two characters in the book, or like can you explain the context behind them. So just another way, it's like any question that you'd ask your English professor in college. Now I just ask chat gpt.
I do love that because I read some books like I'm reading this book called Pragmatism as Anti-Authoritarianism right now, which is a I can barely even say the title.
Tongue twister there,
And it's by this philosopher Richard Rorty that I really like, and I've been reading his books and other like sort of more dense philosophy books for a long time, and like I majored in philosophy in college, so like I kind of can wade through some of the jargon, but I always felt like there was stuff in those books that I like just was never going to be able to get unless I went back to school and went to grad school, which is always sort of like slightly on my mind, but like going to grad school just like sort of seems like a pain. Like I don't really want to do that. And so I was just sort of like torn because I'm like, I want to get more out of these kinds of books, but like I don't want to do that. And I just feel like ChatGPT just like completely like I don't have to go to grad school anymore
yeah,
because of
pretty much.
ChatGPT, which
Yeah.
is really great. Like I'm just sitting there like reading a book and I'll just take a picture of it and send it to ChatGPT and be like, "Can you explain this to me?" Yeah. How are you doing this? Like do you have a laptop while you're reading? Do you use it on your phone? Like what's your kind of like reading with ChatGPT? How does that work for you?
So I definitely have the app on my phone. Sometimes I'll use it there. Um, but yeah, I think personally, when I do my reading session, I just like to have a book and a pen, and then maybe on the back, I'll write down a few questions, and then after I'm done with my reading session, then I'll go and use ChatGPT, and that'll be like my study session,
Okay.
something like that. Yeah.
And you do a study session for like every book?
Uh, no, I would say most of the books I read are nonfiction, so it's a little bit more direct, it's more actionable. But I will use maybe ChatGPT, kind of like, okay, I have this like list of lessons from this book. How can I actually go apply it? Like for example, the Alex Hormozy book recently. He has that whole Grand Slam offer, how to make like a compelling offer. So then I asked ChatGPT like, how can I apply this to something I'm trying to sell?
Let's actually do that because I've actually done literally the exact same thing. Like, I think there's something about like content creator business people like using Alex Hormozy's book to like create offers. So like, I want to let's do that. So, yeah, tell me about what you did so we can replicate it.
So first I would ask ChatGPT, can you summarize the main lessons from $100 million offers by Alex Hormozy?
Okay, by Alex Hormozy. Um, oops, I misspelled Hormozy, but I think it'll probably get the gist. Love when ChatGPT just completely goes down in the middle. Okay, here we go. Sure. Here's a summary of the main lessons. So value stacking, create an irresistible offer by stacking value, understanding customer pain points, deeply understand the pain points and desires of your target audience, offer creation, break down the components of a great offer into 4 key elements: the dream outcome, perceived likelihood of achievement, time delay, effort, and sacrifice. Pricing psychology, use pricing strategies that enhance the perceived value of your offer, scarcity and urgency, risk reversal, irresistible bonuses, social proof and testimonials, market research and iteration, communicating value. Does it seem like a reasonable summary?
Yeah, so a lot of the key lessons from the book.
Yeah.
I would specifically ask it, can you share more about the offer creation, specifically what he meant by creating a Grand Slam offer?
Okay, cool. Specifically, let's say can you break down how he constructs a grand slam offer? So tell me about why you're asking this question to ChatGPT because you already know more or less, right?
Yeah, so I kind of understand, like, reading it, but I think just having the next steps to be able to apply it to my specific situation, I think is super helpful. And then also if you use ChatGPT to kind of do the early work of it, and then you could maybe add the finishing touches or the human touches at the end of it. I think that just helps you move faster.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Like there's a couple things here. Like one is the cool thing about this is like a book is sort of like this static thing where you're doing the work to apply it. And I think that's actually quite valuable. Like you don't want to not have to do the work to apply it. But what's really interesting is with ChatGPT, like because it writes out this like this summary of of the framework, you can just have it apply the framework to your specific situation as if Alex was right there, like talking to you, which is
Yeah.
like pretty cool. And I think the like benefit of having it write out the framework first before you say, hey, can you help me construct an offer like Alex Hormozy, is it sort of creates a plan for ChatGPT where
Right.
it's like it knows, okay, this is the first step, and it's going to follow its own plan that it writes, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we've got the offer frameworks. We've got the dream outcome, the perceived likelihood of achievement, time delay, effort, and sacrifice, and we're building a grand slam offer. Here's how to do it step by step. Cool. So should we apply it?
Yeah. So help me build a Grand Slam offer for, I guess, my specific case. I'm building a course that teaches people how to read smarter, more productively, and more efficiently.
Smarter, more productively, and more efficiently. For this chat, I am Alex from Alex and Books, just so it can get a little bit more about you in there. Okay, sure, Alex. Let's build a Grand Slam offer for your course on reading smarter, more productively, more efficiently. We'll follow the offer creation framework by Alex Hormozy. 1. Identify the dream outcome. So one of the things it's doing here, which I actually don't really like, is it's just like doing the whole thing for you. I think what we want to do is like go step by step. So we're going to modify the prompt and say go step by step and ask me questions to help me I like do the work for each step, so we can build our offer and answers together. I think that's a little bit better because like ChatGPT can make stuff up, but it's not going to be like exactly like what you think, and I think it's better to have it like pull it out of you. Okay, so identify the dream outcome. The dream outcome is the ultimate result or transformation your customers desire. What are the main benefits and results your students will achieve by taking your course? What does the ideal outcome look like for them? Oh, see,
Well, that's interesting. It gives you options. Okay.
it's continuing to. Okay, stop.
It's doing too much.
Okay, only ask one question at a time, and only move on to the next step when I say so. Okay, that'll keep it in line.
The robots are getting out of hand.
I wonder what. Okay. Okay, so step 1, identify the dream outcome. First, we need to clearly define the dream outcome for your target audience. This is the ultimate result or transformation they want to achieve by taking your course. Question 1, what do you believe is the ultimate result or transformation that your customers desire from learning to read smarter, more productively, and more efficiently?
They'll be able to get, let's see, how should we put it? If you could read more productively, you'll get more value from the time you spent reading. You'll be able to remember more of what you read, and which will help you make better decisions and improve your life faster than someone that just reads passively.
Okay, cool. Wow, my memory is full. Crazy. Come on, ChatGPT. We're going to switch to Claude if you don't respond.
They got stumped.
Excellent. Here's how we articulate the dream outcomes based on what you've shared. By taking this course, you will maximize value from reading, improve memory retention, make better decisions, and enhance your life quality. Okay, so next, we need to enhance the perceived likelihood that your customers will achieve this dream outcome. This involves building credibility and trust. What are some testimonials, case studies, or success stories you have from previous students or clients who have taken your course?
I have testimonials on the landing page. I have testimonials from best-selling authors, including.
Do you have a landing page where I can just copy paste them?
Yeah. It's called The Art of Reading. If you just type into Google, hopefully it comes up.
Is it .com?
No, it was like on Kajabi or something. No, the second one, yeah.
We got Tiago Forte, we got Morgan Housel. Wow, you got a lot of good people. Cool. So I'm gonna just paste that in here. Here are some testimonials. Cool. Great testimonials. These will significantly enhance the perceived likelihood of achievement. Minimize the time delay. We need to minimize the time it takes for your customers to start seeing results. What are some quick wins or immediate benefits your customers can expect to see early on in your course?
Uh, all lessons are short. They're between 5 and 10 minutes. They're broken up into specific problems, so you could go directly to the skill you most want to learn or reading obstacle that's or your biggest reading obstacle.
Cool. Let's keep going. That's fantastic. Immediate benefits and quick wins. So it's summarizing what we said. Okay, so now we're on to step 4, reduce effort and sacrifice. What resources, tools, or support can you provide to make the learning process as easy and effortless as possible?
So each lesson has a 1-page summary PDF. So if you prefer reading over watching, that's an option. And each lesson ends with actionable steps. So you're not just learning, you're actually given steps on how to apply what you've learned.
Great. Done. All right, step 5, construct the Grand Slam offer. Do you have any additional bonuses or special features you'd like to include?
Yeah, I have a list of the 100 books that had the biggest impact of my life and a short summary of each one. And then I also have a list of 50 short nonfiction books and 50 short fiction books that people could choose from if they're looking for a quick read.
Okay, so now it is going to construct the Grand Slam offer with all the elements combined. By taking this course, you will maximize your value from reading. You'll improve your memory retention. You'll make better decisions. It's giving us all the testimonials. I think what it's probably doing right now is it's sort of like summarizing each.
Everything.
Like what is your preferred like format for like outcome of this Grand Slam offer? Should it be more compressed, or like how does it look when it's done? Oh, here we go. Final offer. Enroll in the Master of the Art of Reading course today and transform your reading skills with short, focused lessons that provide immediate benefits and actionable steps. So this feels a little bit too, it's not concrete enough,
Right.
which is interesting. Plus, get exclusive access to curated lists of impactful books to guide your reading journey. Learn from the best and make better, more informed decisions in your personal and professional life. It's actually not bad.
Yeah.
Well, actually, what do you think?
I think it's doing a good job. It's just a bit too general. Like if it could use some of the specific responses we used, I think that would make it a more compelling offer.
Yeah. So one of the things I like to do, we'll see how it does on this, is like I'll have it reflect on itself and grade its own work.
Interesting.
Like, okay, based on Alex Hormozzi's framework above, what do you think of the offer you constructed? Is there anything missing? What can be improved to make it more effective? Let's see if it's self-aware enough to fix these problems that we're seeing. Okay, so make the dream outcome more vivid and emotionally engaging. For example, emphasize how mastering your reading can lead to career advancements. I do think that vivid and emotionally engaging is right. I would have framed it as like more concrete. But yeah, I think that's a similar way to say that. Potential improvements for the perceived likelihood of achievement include more specific success stories or case studies. Minimize time delay. Highlight specific examples of quick wins. So yes, we're getting more concrete, more specific examples. Reduce effort and sacrifice. So potential improvements are offer additional support options like dedicated. So it's asking you to just
add more.
add more stuff to your offer, which is pretty interesting. And then it's sort of like suggesting examples. So for the make the dream outcome more vivid, it's saying, imagine being able to read any book in half the time and retain twice as much information, giving you a competitive edge in your career and enriching your personal life with profound knowledge and insights. That's actually not bad. I don't know if you want to promise that specifically. Read any book in half the time and retain twice as much, but like it's sort of on the right track.
Yeah, I think it gives you a good idea of like copy you could use.
Yeah. Join thousands of satisfied students who have transformed their reading skills. Watch this video testimonial from a student who doubled their reading speed and comprehension within just 2 weeks. Start seeing results immediately. our students report significant improvements after just the first lesson. So this is actually not bad. Like it maybe is going too far in the direction of like over promising,
Yeah.
but like that's sort of the like framework that it's using, and you can kind of like bring it back to like being more, yeah, more concrete and more what you actually want to promise. But I think it's like it's pretty helpful.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much like on par with what with the information we have. It did kind of go like above and beyond with some of the claims, so that I would just like edit to make it a little bit more realistic.
I love that. And did you actually use this for constructing your offer, like this process?
Yeah, so I asked it to use like the ADA framework,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I experimented with different a bunch of different like copywriting formulas,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I inputted like, okay, here's what the course is about. Here's this framework. Write out the basically the copy for it. Yeah.
I think it's almost like a new format for nonfiction books. Like any nonfiction book that has a framework, I feel like should have like a custom GPT that it comes with, where it just
Yeah.
like applies the framework for you.
Yeah, I think that's super helpful because a lot of these lessons in nonfiction books are told like through story, and the author doesn't really like maybe give you like actionable steps or like kind of summarize what to do. But if you kind of ask, ChatGPT in this example, and then it'll ask you, a question for each part of the formula, and then you input your answer, and that's how you get like the specific outcome you're looking for.
Yeah. The other nice thing about this is like, it has memory, which we've already talked about. And one of the things I use it for is like sometimes there's a lesson in a nonfiction book where you're like, oh, like I just want that just like burned into my memory, you know?
Okay, yeah,
And I want to be reminded of it like all the time. So like for me, this didn't exactly come from a nonfiction book. It came from my therapist, but like I think it's like it could have just as well come from a nonfiction book. Maybe he read it in a nonfiction book. We'll probably say that. So like one of the things that's like just like a thing that I have to work on all the time is I have like a lot of people pleaser tendencies. And I say yes to too much, and I don't like saying no and all that
Mm,
kind of stuff. And if I kind of like reduce that down, it's sort of about like fear of like the guilt or shame that I would feel in like saying no.
okay.
And so my therapist was like, okay, I want you to like ask yourself the question anytime you're in one of those situations, like, what would I do? What would you do if you're not afraid of feeling guilty? Um, and that's the kind of thing where it's like, whoa, like
That's
that's
a good
actually a
question.
really good
Yeah.
question, right? But it's really hard to remember, especially when you're in a particular situation. And so I just went into ChatGPT and put it into my memory. And I was like, anytime I'm making a decision that's interpersonal, like please ask me what I would do if I wasn't feeling guilty. And um, and I always use ChatGPT when I'm making bigger decisions, and it always asks me that question. And that like little simple thing, it's like it's honestly paid so many dividends. And I feel like the same thing is true. There's like there's probably lots of these things from different nonfiction books where you're like, I want to remember that, and ChatGPT is just very good at like bringing it up when you need to hear it.
Yeah, that'd be interesting if you could have, I'm not sure if there's a feature or not, but you kind of have saved profiles of like, okay, if I'm working on a new landing page or sales page, let me go to the copy AI version of this profile versus like if I'm making a big life decision, let me go to the AI profile that will ask me that question and like others that, will help me make a better decision.
Yeah, it doesn't have that specifically, but it will select the correct memory for the correct circumstance. So, like, if you're asking about copy and you have memories related to copy, it will go to that. There are also custom GPTs with their own personalities where you could like build a Alex Hormozy bot for yourself or
Okay, cool.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So this is really awesome. So we went through the offer. Are there other things you wanna talk about?
Yeah, let's see what else we have on the list. Oh, so I guess so. Another great example that I've used AI for is, let's say there's a book I loved. So that means I'm a big fan of the author. I admire them. I respect them. We probably have a lot in common. But who are my heroes' heroes? So who is my favorite author look up to? So maybe if there's a book you read recently, let's try to find out who are that author's favorite authors and who had the biggest impact on their life.
Yeah, I love that. I just love going down the kind of like intellectual rabbit hole of like this person influenced this person and this person influenced this person, because like often the thing that you like most about someone is like they learned it from someone else,
Yeah.
you know? Okay, so let's just do that with Adrian Tchaikovsky, the guy who wrote Children of Memory, because I'm actually kind of curious. So, I love Adrian Tchaikovsky series Children of Time. Um, who are his favorite authors? Something
Yeah.
like that. I want to figure out who influenced him to write this series. So it's doing a little bit of a web search, and one of the interesting things is like, so having it do a web search, it can be good. If there's like a Google result, like someone actually went and interviewed him, and there's like a thing that's like Adrian Tchaikovsky's like top 5 favorite books. But sometimes like it's just better to like make it not browse and just like do it from its memory, because it'll find like weirder things that are
Yeah.
not necessarily like the first thing on Google. But um, let's see what it says. So it says Gene Wolfe, known for his complex and layered narratives. Wolfe's work often involves intricate world building and deep philosophical themes. That sounds good for me. Mervyn Peake, famous for the Gorman Gost series. Peake's rich Gothic style and detailed characterization have left a significant mark on his writing. China Miéville, with his unique blend of fantasy, horror, and speculative fiction. Miéville's imaginative and boundary-pushing stories are a clear influence. Interesting. Cool. I've never heard of any of these people, but honestly, Gene Wolfe is like pretty cool sounding. Let's see. I want to look at what Gene Wolfe has written. Gene Wolfe, American fiction writer. Where's the Amazon? Here we go. The Wolf at the Door is his top book. That's fascinating. Let's see. I can't believe that he wrote a book with his own name in the title. Is it a fiction book? uh oh, it's a brand new collection. Okay, so it's like, I think it's short stories. Okay.
Okay.
Here, I want to like, what's his, let's see. Let's ask like, what's the Gene Wolfe book that's most, similar to Children of Time, because I don't really want his short story collection. I want like something that's more sci-fi. The Book of the New Sun series, The Shadow of the Torturer. Wow, that sounds dark. Okay, The Shadow of the Torturer. Where are the Torturer? Gene Wolfe. Okay. Shadow and Claw. Interesting. So that's actually, it's not called The Shadow of the Torturer. It sounds like ChatGPT made that up. That's quite interesting. Okay, The Book of the New Sun is unanimously acclaimed as Wolfe's most remarkable work, hailed as a masterpiece of science fantasy, comparable in importance to the major works of Tolkien and Lewis. That's interesting. I've never heard of him. So it's the tale of young Severian, an apprentice to the Guild of Torturers on the world called Earth, exiled for committing the ultimate sin of his profession, showing mercy toward his victim. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
The Claw of the Conciliator continues the saga of Severian, banished from his home as he undertakes a mythic quest to discover the awesome power of an ancient relic. Cool. I'm like sort of tempted to buy this, but I should wait, because I just bought a bunch of books. Yeah. What is your rule for that? Like, what are you? How are you? When do you buy a new book versus like wait?
That's a good question. So I have this rule. It's kind of catchy too, so easy to remember. So it's read it when you need it. So you kind of want to identify what's the priority in your life. What are you working on? And it could be like, reading for entertainment, or maybe you're planning on writing your own fiction book. So maybe now might be time to write fiction books. For me specifically, working on rewriting the copy for my course. So reading a lot of copywriting books, which, 2 years ago, I would never read a copywriting book because it's just not relevant to me. So it's no longer interesting. But now, because I am working on this project, now, copywriting is super interesting. Yeah. So I would say, think about what's the biggest priority in your life, and then, focus on reading books in that section. But you could also have, a fun book. So I oftentimes, I'll have like a serious book I'm reading, something I want to learn and improve on, but then I'll also have a fun book just because I think if you just read for education, it kind of gets a little bit boring. It's kind of like just watching documentaries all the time. Sometimes you want to, watch that movie or watch that TV series. Same thing for reading. Sometimes you want to have like a fun read. So I would say, if you already have like a long list of sci-fi books that, you need to get through, maybe hold off on buying this book. But maybe if it's like the last book in the series and, you're ready for something new, that might be the time to get it.
But are you like a go to the bookstore and get like an armload guy, or are you like I read one thing at a time, and I'm like, I don't start a new one until I finish the last one?
Yeah, I try to cap it at 3 books.
Okay.
So I like to have, maybe like a serious book, like a more fun book, and then maybe one book on my phone, or like an audiobook or something like that. So that way, if I'm on the go, I have something to listen to. Because that way, I think you end up just, starting 10 different books and you never get through like any of them, or you just, it's just like the shiny new object. Like just because it's new doesn't mean it's better. So I think a lot of people fall into that trap where they, buying books and reading books are two different hobbies. So
It's so true.
yeah,
I love that. Buying books and reading books are two different hobbies. That's
yeah.
great.
And there's a great quote that like when we buy a book, we make the mistake of we're also buying the time to read it.
Uh-huh.
Because you think about it, a book takes you maybe 5 to 10 hours to read. So every time you buy a book, that's if you buy 3 books, that's 30 hours of time that you're kind of investing.
Yeah.
So that's another way to think about it. So I would say maybe read 2 books at a time or cap it to like 3.
What's your fun book right now?
So I would say this it's also a business book, but it's like it's kind of like a business thriller almost. It's Never Enough from Barista to Billionaire by Andrew Wilkinson.
Oh, that's the one you mentioned. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's his journey of literally working as a barista, making I think it was like $6 an hour, to how he built this company. And there's actually a lot of like drama in it. Like right now, I'm up to the part with one of his business partners. Is kind of like doing like shady stuff, like maxing out the company credit cards, going to buying like these expensive dinners and like fancy hotels, and he's actually working on spinning out his own company and like stealing clients. But Andrew caught him. So it is kind of, although it's like it might seem like a boring business book, it's not. It's kind of like a thriller book. So it's been enjoyable to read, and that's been kind of like my fun book.
That's great. Andrew's awesome. Do you have any books that are like that have been on your like nightstand where you're like you keep meaning to read them and you really do want to read them and you're gonna get to them next, but you never get to them?
Yeah.
What are they?
Um.
Or give me one.
Uh. So I started it and I've been enjoying it. So the book Outlive by Peter Attia. I think it's just because it's like so long, and I've read a lot of other like health books, and it kind of always comes down to the same thing. It's like get your sleep, eat a lot of fruits and vegetables,
Yeah.
exercise. And although I am enjoying it, it is like, it's pretty funny. When I first started like reading a lot of books, I bought the book War and Peace because I heard it's like a classic, so let me go read it. And I bought it, and I didn't know how long it was, and then it came in the box, and it's 1,000 pages long.
It's a doorstop.
Yeah, and it's funny to think like I'm a big guy and I'm intimidating by like this book. But yeah, the bigger the book is kind of like more intimidating to start because every time you look at it, it's like, all right, that book's gonna take me like 10 hours to finish. Yeah, so that's another like helpful reading tip I tell people is like just pick up short books because like they're easier to read, easier to finish, and help you like build momentum. So I'm sure I'm gonna get through that book. It's just gonna be like one bite at a time.
Yeah, totally. That's great. Let's keep going. What else should we talk about? What else you got on here?
So we're talking about like buying books. So another way you could use AI is to summarize books, to kind of like sample them because let's say you're in the bookstore, you're not sure if this book has like the lessons you're looking for. Yeah. So you could ask AIs like, hey, can you write a 500-word summary, or what can you share the key lessons from this book, to be able to identify if it has like the lessons you're looking for and if it's worth reading.
Yeah, no, I like that. Like I think different pieces of content have different attention spans. And like books are obviously like a very long attention span like format, and there's something like really valuable and important about like sinking into an idea and a worldview and like a writer's brain for like 10 hours or something like that. But a lot of books are just like, no, I actually just want the idea, give it to me in 2 seconds. You know what I mean? And there are all these companies like Blinkist and whatever that do like book summaries, and I think like book summaries are sort of like to some degree like derided. Like people are like, oh, you gotta like read the whole thing, blah blah blah. But I think it's like actually a very important service to people to like have your ideas in different formats and mediums for different attention spans and different channels. And yeah, obviously like you want to direct people eventually to the book and like have people spend a lot of time with it, but like it is just the way our brains work that like that we might not want to spend a lot of time on something that we haven't like been convinced to spend time on before. And I think it's like really nice that ChatGPT can summarize things in a form that works for you. Like the kind of summary you might like, it might be a bit different from the summary that I might like or might work best for me. And it's just so good at doing that. Like I was doing this like a day or two ago because I'm trying to learn about this. There's this whole new thing in AI called sparse autoencoders. And like, don't ask me to explain it because like I'm still not like fully there. But like the basic gist is like, it's a method for understanding, or it's used for a lot of different things, but it's used more specifically in like mechanistic interpretability to like understand what's going on inside of a AI model's brain when it's like outputting tokens. And so you can like it creates this like literal like cloud of content of concepts, and you can see which ones are most active when it's producing different types of text, which is like amazing. It's so cool, and I want to like write about it because I've been using some of these. There's one specifically for Claude that I've been using that Anthropic put out. And I want to write about it, so I need to learn how sparse autoencoders work. And like, there's some like technical articles online. There's like literally a single podcast on Spotify that talks about it, and it was like too technical for me. But I just like literally, I just went into ChatGPT. I was like, "Can you explain this to me?" And then I went on a walk and I did like the ChatGPT voice thing,
Okay.
and it's its own podcast like created specifically for me to like learn about this topic. And like honestly, I think it's better than any sort of like paper or whatever would have been to just teach me the basics. Like it's really good.
Okay, that's interesting. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, AI just moving so quickly. It's hard to like keep up with all the stuff.
Yeah.
That's a really cool feature of it.
Yeah, and it's not even it's like I can't even read a book about it because it's like it's too new,
Yeah,
you know? So using it for that kind of like that learning where it's like I need this information in a format like that's right for my specific context is like that's super valuable.
Yeah.
What else? Anything else you want to talk about before we close?
Yeah. So uh, this idea to like help build like a course that teaches people how to become better readers came to mind, but I didn't know if like people would be interested in it. So I literally put out a Google form with 2 questions, like what's your email, and also what's your biggest like reading obstacle. And for this like simple form, I got over 500 responses. And I want to see like how we could use ChatGPT to kind of like figure out, what are people's biggest problems, or just kind of like summarize it, so that way we know like what people want or what they're interested in.
I like that. Okay, so I just downloaded the CSV, and I'm going to go into my responses, and I'm gonna upload. Okay, so what should I say?
Um, I I asked people what's their biggest reading obstacle. Can you summarize all the answers and give me the top 10 most common, I guess, problems?
Give me the top 10 most common problems. So basically what it's doing right now is it's like using Python to like read the CSV file, and then it's like basically doing a like a word count to like find the most common words,
Oh.
and then printing them out, which I actually don't think we want to do, because it's not going to be like using the sort of like LLM brain. So like I might just actually just copy and paste this into a new chat.
Or I think you just copy the C column,
The C column,
and
cool.
that'll just give you.
I'll just do the C column. That's a good idea. Cool. Oops. Okay. What is going on here? Okay. Cool. Let's just do a new chat. Okay. Let's try this one more. Nope, that's not working. Okay, I'm just gonna do the whole thing. Okay. I surveyed people about their biggest pain points when reading for a course I'm running. Can you summarize the top 10? Cool. Here are the top 10 pain points: time management and scheduling, difficulty finding or making time to read due to busy schedules, struggling to fit reading into daily routines, retention and recall, difficulty remembering or retaining information, note taking and annotation, finding effective methods for taking and organizing notes, focus and concentration, maintaining focus while reading, avoiding distractions, motivation and consistency, staying motivated to read regularly, comprehension and application, understanding and applying concepts, reading speed and efficiency, book selection, balancing different types of reading, and handling overwhelm and procrastination. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds about right from what like I was reading the responses. I'd be curious is it listed in the actual priority? Like, is time management the biggest problem?
Mm-hmm. Listed in order of priority. Like, is time management the biggest problem? Okay, the list was not ordered by priority, but rather by common themes observed in the responses. To determine the priority, I would need to analyze the frequency of each pain point mentioned by the survey respondents. Let's see what it does. That's actually kind of interesting. It might take a little while, so we'll wait for it to. I wonder if it'll actually work. Wow.
I didn't know that was a feature where you could show the code or like, as it's working.
Yeah, so it says always show details. I think they try to hide it, but like I really like as it's working to show the code because you just never know when it's going to make a mistake. And so like having a broad general sense of like, okay, this is kind of what it's doing and this seems reasonable or not, like helps me decide like, am I going to trust the output or not? And usually it's like pretty good, but like sometimes it does something boneheaded and you're like, well, that doesn't work at all, you know? This is going to take a while. It's being very, very, very slow, which is sort of interesting. Slower than normal. I think this is. Oh, here we go. Okay, this is not actually working. So I'm gonna. Here's what I'm gonna do. Is time management the biggest problem? Um, just make your best guess based on what you see here. Don't write code. I don't want it to write code because it's going to take too long, and I don't think the result is going to be exactly right. So based on the frequency and emphasis of the responses, the pain points appear to be listed in order priority, with time management and scheduling being most common. So yeah, it does seem like it thinks time management is the most common. Do you think that's right?
Yeah, I hear from a lot of people like I would read more if I had the time to do it.
What is your general response to that kind of person?
So in the course, I talk about how you either want to focus on combination or prioritization. So like either you want to make time ahead of other activities you're already doing or combine reading with an existing activity. So for example, if you already work out a lot, just listen to an audiobook. Or if you're spending a lot of time commuting to or from work, put on an audiobook while you listen to that. Or prioritize reading above other activities. So like before you put on Netflix, read for 5 or 10 minutes. Or, before you go to sleep, read a book instead of, grabbing your phone at the end of the night.
When you see people go from not being readers to being readers, like what is usually the unlock for them?
I think that everyone thinks they're not a reader, but they just haven't found the right book. Because everyone kind of basically enjoys reading books as a kid. Like, because you have like the picture books, they're like fun, they're light, they're easy to read.
Yeah.
Then they usually get into like the science fiction or fantasy books, like the Harry Potter series of unfortunate events, or like Captain Underpants, something like that. So they are enjoying reading, but then what happens is you get to middle school or high school where you kind of get to like this classic English error where you're kind of forced to read all these boring books. Like we mentioned earlier, it's English. The book is in English, but if you need to like translate it or if you need to go to SparkNotes to understand it, it's not really English. So being forced to read all of these books kind of just kills your joy for reading. And then either most people don't read books for the rest of their life, or hopefully they stumble upon a book that kind of catches their eye. Usually it's like Atomic Habits or like How to Win Friends or like one of these self-improvement books that kind of make them realize like, oh wait, there's like so much I could learn from all these books out there. Why did I stop reading? And it's because like I was forced to read all of these books, but now I'm free to like read anything and everything I want. And I think that's the unlock. Like once you realize you're done with school, no one's gonna assign you these books, you're not being tested on these books. You could read anything you want. I think that kind of opens up the world to them.
That's great. I love that. And I think that's a perfect place to end. Love getting more people to read. Thank you so much for doing this with me. This is a ton of fun.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you for having me, Dan.
Oh my gosh, folks. You absolutely positively have to to smash that like button and subscribe to AI and I. Why? Because this show is the epitome of awesomeness. It's like finding a treasure chest in your backyard, but instead of gold, it's filled with pure, unadulterated knowledge bombs about ChatGPT. Every episode is a roller coaster of emotions, insights, and laughter that will leave you on the edge of your seat, craving for more. It's not just a show, it's a journey into the future with Dan Shipper as the captain of the spaceship. So do yourself a favor, hit like, smash subscribe, and strap in for the ride of your life. And now, without any further ado, let me just say, Dan, I'm absolutely, hopelessly in love with you.